Tonight on Now, Senator Susan Collins has a big decision to make. Will she run for governor?
We sent a team to D.C. to find out what's on her mind. And would you buy items that came from Texas after Hurricane Harvey? One local store is selling them.
And Mainers head to Boston to learn if marijuana could be a profitable business.
This is NewsCenter Now.
What the main regulations are going to look like for adult use as of today, it's important to get ahead of the curve and understand what other states are doing.
Well, Mainers are in Boston today for a marijuana business expo. They're looking to get ahead of the business curve before regulations in Maine are even finalized.
Down the street, everybody's looking at something in their lap. It's scary.
When we think distracted driving, we think about cell phones, but one of the biggest distractions may be built into our dashboards. Hey everybody, I'm Chris Costa.
And I'm Christina Rex. Amanda and Lee are actually in Bangor hosting the To Those Who Care Awards tonight, so we're here filling in. We're going to start today in Kennebunk, where a former health teacher denies that she had an inappropriate relationship with a student.
She was indicted for sex crimes, but says it never happened. Yet, as Danielle Waugh reports, police have spent months investigating the student's story.
The allegation started with a student in the hospital. According to court documents, a 17-year-old had attempted suicide last spring. In interviews with hospital staff, he said he had a sexual relationship with 29-year-old teacher Jill LaMontagne in the classroom, at her house, and in her car.
It's crucial to follow up on these type of cases because there are victims out there.
Initially, this was a case of he said, she said, but Kennebunk police say after months of investigating, that changed.
It was brought forth back in April, could not corroborate it at that time. Since that time, certainly we had additional information that came forward where we reopened the case and brought forward an indictment.
LaMontagne has been indicted on 14 sex abuse charges, and her lawyer says she'll plead not guilty to all of them.
These charges will be fought tooth and nail because they're false.
Scott Gardner says the former teacher denies everything, calling it a high school rumor and the fantasies of an emotionally troubled student.
He's a dedicated teacher, and she's just absolutely devastated by this whole situation.
But Kennebunk police say there's enough evidence for charges.
It's very, very disturbing.
An allegation that's rocked this small town.
I think parents, grandparents, as I am, are always upset when you find out one of the teachers is not someone you can trust.
LaMontagne is out on $1,000 bail. She's due back in court in December. In Kennebunk, Danielle Waugh, NewsCenter.
You upon your oath say the defendant is guilty. Robert Burton claims he murdered his ex-girlfriend in self-defense, but the jury didn't buy it. Stephanie Ginn-Gibo was shot in the back in 2015. Police searched for Burton for 2 months after that shooting. He finally turned himself in. But it was the longest, most expensive manhunt in Maine history.
Police arrested a kid in Machias for threats that shut down schools in seven different towns yesterday. Officials say subpoenas led them to a male juvenile who was arrested for terrorizing. The superintendent of Machias Bay School System said they decided to cancel class when they received the shooting threat via email because they didn't want to take any risks after what happened in Las Vegas.
And new disturbing details from the Las Vegas investigation. Officials say the shooter may have researched other locations before going to Vegas, including Fenway Park. A senior law enforcement official says Stephen Paddock researched hotels in the Fenway area and even booked a hotel in Chicago during the Lollapalooza Music Festival. There's no evidence that Paddock ever actually traveled to Boston or Chicago.
There's a debate raging on social media right now about whether the Las Vegas mass shooting is an act of terror.
Now, no one is saying that this unspeakable act of violence, but terrorism has a strict definition at the federal level, and it all has to do with motive. According to U.S. federal law, terrorism is the unlawful use of force and violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof, in furtherance of political or social objectives.
Now, because we don't know why the gunman decided to open fire on a group of civilians, this attack is not considered terrorism by federal law enforcement. In Nevada, the definition of terrorism does not mention motive, which is why there's a discrepancy. So it's not so much about the scale of the attack, but why it happened.
We have way too much stuff going on in a car that can be distracting.
If you have a new car, you're likely seeing more technology in the control panel.
A new study from AAA reports those infotainment systems, those digital screens on your dashboard, they can severely distract drivers.
Now, those researchers estimate that about 1/3 of U.S. drivers use these systems while driving, taking their attention off the road. In today's society, technology rules, even behind the wheel of a car.
When we asked you to do these tests.
A study from AAA asked participants to use the digital control panels in 2017 vehicles to perform common tasks.
Say a command.
Including programming navigation,
97.1.
changing the radio,
Please say a command.
or making a phone call. Technology that's supposed to prevent people from picking up other devices, like a smartphone. Of the 30 vehicles tested, 23 demanded high or very high driver attention to use the technology, similar to typing a text while driving.
We got an awful lot of buttons in the car.
Driving instructor Ron Vance in Saco says it's too much tech.
That's an awful lot for a teenager or even a beginner driver. It can be overwhelming.
But it's not just tough for young drivers.
If I want to do any navigation, I find it really hard to do because I have to look over, I have to kind of stare at it, I have to try to figure out how to navigate around it.
Some drivers were distracted for a full 40 seconds. AAA says that at 25 miles per hour, a car could travel the length of 4 football fields.
It's putting a lot of demand on us. It's not a video game. It's a game of life.
Now, in a statement, the automotive industry takes issue with the study, saying researchers continue to make no attempt to tie their results to actual crash risk or accurately simulate how drivers actually use these systems in the real world. Now, some automakers require the vehicle to be stopped in order to type in navigation or complicated commands, but AAA says 40% of the cars it tested allowed those drivers to type in those commands while the car was in motion.
And Senator Susan Collins has a big decision to make. Is she going to leave Washington behind and run for governor? Pat Callahan sat down with her today in the nation's capital.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at how high-end everything is here. It's not, a bunch of hippies smoking pot or anything like that.
Several people from Maine attending a convention in Boston for people looking to get into the marijuana business. Coming up.
Thousands of people are in Boston today for the Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo. Later this month, Maine legislators are expected to vote on recreational marijuana regulations. But that isn't stopping some Mainers from trying to get ahead of the game now. NewsCenter's Tennyson Coleman is live in Boston, where he followed a couple of folks from Maine, and he has more on why they decided to make the trip down to Beantown. Hey, Tennyson.
Hey guys, this is definitely not what some people might think when they hear the words marijuana convention. The lights are not low, as you can see, and people are not sitting around smoking pot. In fact, smoking is actually banned at this event.
This isn't Woodstock. These are business people. These are your neighbors. These are people looking for another opportunity.
In the heart of Boston, nearly 2,000 people gathered for an expo focused on all things, well, green, money, and marijuana. By now, you know the plant is controversial to say the least, but it's legal for recreational use in Maine.
To all of this is amazing.
It's a must-attend event for some Mainers like Norman Bamford and Derek Connors. They drove 5 hours from Sullivan just to be here.
This is well worth the trip, and well worth anybody thinking about the cannabis industry.
The two don't own a cannabis company just yet, but they hope to open a head shop in Maine once regulations for adult use marijuana are finalized. Both Bamford and Connors believe being at one of the largest expos of its kind could give them a leg up.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at how high-end everything is here. It's not, a bunch of hippies smoking pot or anything like that. It's very professional.
The expo gives them the opportunity to meet cannabis professionals from all over the world and even connect with other Mainers like Ron Smalley of Portland.
Not knowing what the Maine regulations are going to look like for adult use as of today, it's important to get ahead of the curve and understand what other states are doing.
Smalley owns a business on display called Vista Green, which helps people apply for marijuana licenses. And if you thought we were done talking about Mainers here, meet marijuana caregiver Max Random of Augusta. His team is showing off an LED grow light, which he calls groundbreaking, allowing marijuana growers to efficiently light their plants.
Tomorrow I'm doing a talk here and I'm showing the entire process of this experiment.
Norman Bamford and Derek Connors will head back to Maine with a slew of new business contacts and a wealth of knowledge. Their dream one day is to return to the expo as vendors.
We need to have a booth at a convention like this.
Absolutely. It's amazing.
Now, for anyone who wants to make a last-minute trip here to Boston like Bamford and Connors did today, the expo wraps up tomorrow at 5 p.m. and there are actually some big names here. I talked to the Reverend Al Sharpton earlier, actually, who was a keynote speaker. He spoke about diversity in the industry, as well as something Mainers are worried about, and that's big industry or big companies coming in and squashing the little guys. Well, it's been a long day. I think I'm going to head back to Maine. Guys, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Tennyson.
Thanks, Tennyson. When most people ponder the possibility of changing jobs, it's simply a personal choice.
But when Maine's senior U.S. Senator talks about a new career path, it can have statewide and national implications. NewsCenter's Pat Callahan is in Washington, D.C. tonight, where he talked with Senator Susan Collins about her current dilemma. Hey, Pat.
Hi, Chris and Christina. You know, Collins has spent months deliberating whether she's going to keep coming to work here at the U.S. Capitol or return to Maine full-time as governor. Now she is determined to finally make her choice. Now, it's complicated because of the role that Collins plays in the Senate, one of the few moderate Republicans who can work with senators on both sides of the aisle and who exercises great influence, as we saw in the recent debates over repealing Obamacare. But she also likes the idea of working for Maine in a more hands-on way in Augusta, trying to make life better through job creation and economic opportunity. One thing is certain, if she gets in the race for governor, Collins is confident she can win. Many of the people on the right in Maine's Republican Party are not happy with you right now. So, do you see that as a significant obstacle to getting the nomination?
I don't. I know there are people on both ends of the political spectrum that aren't happy with me. That's what happens when you're in the center. There are always going to be people who aren't pleased with your votes or your positions. But I've worked very hard for the Republican Party over more than 20 years, and I've supported candidates whom I didn't agree with on every single issue. And I've been there for them, and I believe in the end of the day that they would be there for me.
And while Senator Collins herself is still undecided, she says virtually everybody she meets has an opinion about what she should do. And that was proven to us when she was chatting with some constituents who came by for a tour today. And unsolicited, they said, oh, we want you to stay in Washington and work in the Senate. We'll have much more with our talk with Senator Susan Collins coming up on NewsCenter at 5:30 and 6 o'clock. Christina, Chris, back to you.
Pat, thanks so much. We'll look forward to that. Coming up, some of you emailed us about hurricane salvaged goods up for resale at local stores. Can these products be dangerous? We went to find some answers.
And it looks like a pretty decent weekend is coming up. Keith Carson has his full forecast after the break.
You've all heard the saying by now that you should have bought something when you saw it at Martin's. Well, we received several messages from Mainers that suggest maybe there are some things you shouldn't be buying.
Specifically, flood-damaged items from recent hurricanes that could be harmful for your health.
Items for resale at Martin's that were wrecked in Hurricane Harvey? Understandably, this had many Mainers concerned. On Facebook, a Texas woman reacted, writing, please don't put yourself and your family in danger with these discount items. We had to throw everything out for the sake of our health. Don't let Martin's fool you. NewsCenter took a trip to some local Martin's to see if the flooded items were really there. We found dirty, flooded bikes and discount sales specifically marking hurricane items. Some of you even sent us pictures of items you say were still wet at the store. We reached out to Martin's, and they declined an on-camera interview, but did send us some answers. The general manager says that the stores do, in fact, sell hurricane salvaged items. He says the company is requested by insurance company representatives to go to natural disaster areas such as Texas and assist with the cleanup process. Martin's does then sell these items, but the manager says they are kept outside in a parking lot sale and clearly marked as salvage from Hurricane Harvey. In his words, Martin's hides nothing, believes in total transparency, and understands that not every customer is interested in this type of product. He says customers can buy a product, take it home, wash it, test it, and be sure they're happy with their purchase. You asked us to find out if these items were really being sold, and we got the answer. They are. According to the CDC, flood water can contain dangerous bacteria from overflowing sewage and agricultural and industrial waste. They recommend that you clean any flooded items with bleach and water.
I don't know. Remember when you were going to Texas after the flood, I said, just be aware how disgusting flood water is. It's everything.
Yes,
it
you said that, and then other people in this office kept saying, be careful for the snakes.
Right.
Yes.
I never saw any. I never saw any snakes. I saw a lot of smelly water, for sure. Yeah. In the meantime, beautiful day today, right?
It was.
We got into the mid-70s again. October, not playing its part here at all, but mixed feelings on it. A lot of people enjoying it. 76 for a high today in Portland, 73 in Bangor. These are really warm temperatures for this time of the year. Overnight lows tonight will be a little bit cooler, right around 50 along the coastline, mid-40s in the mountains. But again, we're talking 10 to 12 degrees above average during the daytime and during the overnight. We got a couple clouds in the mountains. Most of us, though, will be clear through most of tonight. That's how we radiate some of that warmth. A little front comes through tomorrow, so it's partly cloudy with just an isolated shower. I think the vast majority of us stay dry through the day on Friday. Front goes through, and then we start flirting with this front on Saturday. So as that lifts through on Saturday, look for partly cloudy conditions, and again, an isolated shower. The biggest change over the weekend happens on Sunday. We get into the warm sector during the day on Sunday. With the southwest flow, our dew points increase, and temperatures get to around 80 degrees once again. So we keep thinking, well, this is probably it, right? We're not going to get to 79, 80 again, and then just another one pops up. So this Sunday is just another example of that before more showers possibly move into the forecast on Monday afternoon. So the holiday weekend, to me, is 3 days that are all good in their own way. The coolest day is on Saturday, then it'll be warm on Sunday, and then some humidity comes in on Monday. Hour by hour forecast, partly cloudy conditions here again. Isolated shower on Friday. Not overly concerned about it though. And then here comes the front on Saturday doing the same thing. Partly cloudy, a couple of showers around, most of us remain dry. Then we burst into the warm sector on Sunday and we warm up really fast. But, you know, again, we keep looking for this big cool down. I don't really see it. We stay warm on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We do get cool on Thursday, but looking beyond our 7-day forecast, looking into the mid-range, I see it warming back up again, maybe late next week into next weekend. So I just don't see anything that's going to drop us right into fall, which is cool. However, it's doing some bad stuff for the leaves out there. The reports are just not good. We talked about it on Facebook Live just a little bit, but I haven't found anybody who's impressed with this year's foliage. It is changing, as it always will, but it's been on the dull side. And this next week really won't help that. Rain coming in on Tuesday, and then fallish weather. What a novel concept. We'll get some fallish weather on Thursday in mid-October. So
I know a lot of people have been saying, you know, does this warm fall mean we're going to have a really bad winter? Do you have that answer?
I don't think there's any correlation.
Okay.
No, so it should be okay.
We'll take it for
Good to know.
We'll take it.
Cindy Williams is getting ready for NewsCenter at 5:30. She's going to tell us what's coming up. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, guys. We're looking into why a logging truck crashed right into a train in Washington County. Police are now investigating last night's fiery crash. We'll let you know what they found so far. And thanks to the Ice Bucket Challenge, a lot of Americans know about the debilitating disease ALS, but one Mainer suffering from Lou Gehrig's disease found one of his biggest obstacles is his health insurance. We're going to have those stories and much more coming up in the next half hour. Back to you guys.
Okay, this is too funny. So if you go to this camera, Carabasset Valley's camera, during the middle of the day, the foliage is terrible. We're catching the edge of the light right now, and it looks fantastic.
Right.
But
it's just our luck.
Okay, there we go. It's the monitor. All right, look at over here, guys.
Okay.
All right, now we're better. This monitor
totally
is
dull. Yeah.
This monitor is whack. Okay, anyways, so why is the foliage dull this year? What exactly is going on? I'm getting reports from everybody about the same thing. First, let's understand how fall foliage works to begin with, which I don't know is a widespread understanding.
There's vectors involved.
There are vectors. So basically, you have to understand that the pigments that create fall foliage are always in the leaf year-round.
Yep.
And so what's covering it up is the chlorophyll, which is necessary, of course, for the plant during the summer. So that green chlorophyll is produced on a daily basis and continues to cover up the pigments that are underneath. So what happens in response to shorter daylight hours, it's not necessarily temperature, it's shorter daylight hours, that it's a little plug basically that develops between the stem and the branch. It starts blocking nutrients into the leaf, and it's also blocking the leaf from putting nutrients back into the tree. So when that happens, the chlorophyll stops being produced.
Okay.
It eventually breaks down now you can see the pigments that are actually below the leaf. So it's really revealing its true color. And this is kind of a time-release thing that plants do based on the amount of sunshine they're getting. So that's why almost every year we can say late September, early October. So that begs the question, why is this year dull? These factors happen all the time.
Right.
The traditional wisdom is that temperature doesn't have that much to do with it. It's all about this, hours of daylight. And you can see where we're going with this. When it starts on the decline halfway between there and when you get to the really depressing part of December here,
sure. Yeah.
This is when the leaves are kind of preconditions to begin putting the tree to sleep, so to speak, for winter. But I thought about it. If temperature doesn't have much of a factor, then this next map doesn't make any sense, which is fall foliage peak times. If you look at it, Boston, and this is pretty accurate, peaks around the same times as the mountains of North Carolina. So if sunlight is the only factor, if daylight's the only factor, it should be completely latitudinally set up.
That would make more sense.
So temperature has to have more of an impact than we think it does. It's a little bit still of an inexact science. So this explains the duller colors, because this is our temperature anomaly over the past 30 days.
Okay.
We are absolutely red hot on fire, top 5.
New England is perfectly.
It's perfectly right in the zone, and this is where the color isn't good. In fact, upstate New York's a little bit better than what we're seeing in New England. So the bottom line here is, even though it's not the main factor, the fact that we're in the top 5 warmest, it's just dulling the colors. It's slowing down the process to a way that maybe even arborists don't totally understand. But there's obviously a correlation, and I think it's going to give us, unfortunately, not the brightest of fall foliage.
So I can explain this to visitors when they come to see the leaves now.
Hopefully in under 3 minutes. Yes.
Thanks very much, Keith. NewsCenter at 5:30 starts right now.